Paloma, I thought this was really interesting to learn about. Um, I liked a lot of what they did and how they set up telling this story, and because they had so much information and interviews directly from her, it felt very much almost like the documentary of like an autobiography, kind of like the whatever like the documentary video version of an autobiography is, but kind of written by somebody else. I don't know how to, I'm not explaining this very well, but because you had someone that knew her firsthand and had known her for years kind of narrating and guiding the story, it didn't feel as, maybe not biased is not the right word, but it felt like you were getting a more rounded story of what had actually gone on, but also that you were getting it directly from the source, because there were plenty of interviews with her, with her sons, like with the people in her life, like partners or people that were directly involved or involved by way of association. And so because of all of that, it felt like very raw, which I really liked. I liked that style. I liked feeling like I was getting the real story. Um, Also, that it started with some background and it started with, kind of just giving context. And I liked that he kind of took it from, oh, well, this is my perspective as somebody that didn't know until after everything had been revealed and come out what was going on. And this is how I saw everything. And then going back and kind of getting the closer to all of the information of what her experience was like, truly kind of going through it with being involved in such, a very serious organization. And just like when you're in the world of narcotics, that's a very, very serious, very intense world. And so then getting that perspective as well of like, well, this is what was kind of actually happening, this is how I kind of got into it, and what her perspective was. And then not just having it end when she got caught, but she got caught and she was released, and then she was on the run, and that lasted for years, and how she was able to maintain on the run, and how now that everything had kind of come to light, how many things changed, how people's perspectives and their views, and then her eventually turning herself in. And it just felt like you got a really well-rounded story, because you got the context in the beginning, you got what everybody kind of thought was happening, you got the kind of real inside scoop up until she was discovered, and then you got the running after that until she was truly in prison, and then she's served her time, and what her life kind of looks like now. It truly is the full story of at least this part of her life, which was obviously a huge part of her life. But I really enjoyed it. I thought their approach was really interesting. I thought that the way that they unfolded everything was really great, because it kept the audience really hooked and really engaged with the story. And I think a lot of that also is using interviews with people that were her, and like people so closely related or associated with her, because it made the audience feel like they were getting the real inside scoop. And I think as human beings, everybody really likes that.
Paloma, the Queen of Amphetamines, really is a fascinating documentary. The interviews seem like confessionals with subjects speaking directly to the camera. I thought that was a very interesting technique. Such as Jesus talking about his relationship with Paloma when she lived with him in Madrid. The film effectively intermixes animation to illustrate Paloma and her son's lives, the drug trade, and eventual arrest. The animation helps to provide more action and visuals to break up the talking heads, and I thought that was another effective technique the film did, um, to help the viewers and the audiences really understand the context of what the subjects we're talking about. Paloma was an interesting subject for a documentary, to learn more about a woman succeeding in a dangerous male dominated industry and her harrowing story of her downfall. Um, at the end of the film, it discusses really an important issue that resonates with audiences. I mean, how well do you really know the people we interact with from day to day? We don't really know much about their personal lives and who they are, but we should not be so quick to judge others.
Paloma Negra. Wow, this was such a bold documentary. It was very very interesting because when the film starts and you see the whole warning, the whole comments on the director and the team about what they feel about narco traffic and that sort of things, you feel like it's going to be a very risky subject, and it is a risky subject. But what the film does is to show um, a very different spotlights on this kind of people, and more in particular on this woman, because she had a difficult life and she found herself trapped in circumstances that were, beyond her control, yet she somehow managed to take over of them. And it was hell. It's a terrific documentary that shows the humanity of people who go through these kind of experiences, their complexity, why they do this, what they feel about this life, and how they relate to people who is not directly connect with this whole business. And yeah, I think it was a very beautiful, complex uh, portrait of someone who found herself in this situation. And yeah, it's pretty good. I think that one of the strongest elements is the narrative and how the film is shown out also, because it's very professional. The filmmaker does an excellent job creating this story, showing it from so many different angles, and exploring how the, let's say, narrator, the Spanish guy, the Spanish artist, came in talk. I mean, got in contact with this woman and her family. And yeah, it's a very humanistic piece from a very complex subject. It's beautiful made, and it was very interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit long. It's like 1 hour 20 or something, but it doesn't feel that way. It's so interesting that you just keep watching and watching. It gets very good. So yeah, thank you very much for sending it, and great job.
This film is called Paloma Negra. This is an epic feature. What sets it apart for me is the candid nature of the interviews of Paloma, her sons, and the people close to her. So much honesty about their situations and explanations of how and why they did what they did. Excellent artwork, including awesome line drawings throughout the film to give it more visual dimension than just solid interviews. Lots of informative media clips. The soundtrack underneath the interviews enhanced the emotional nature of the story, notably soft guitar and piano. It was interesting to learn about the crime life and the legal repercussions of these crimes. It's good to hear that the family has now come to terms with their actions. Well done.